morning, everyone. It is December 9th. We are in Doha, Qatar, here at the World Innovation Summit for Education. My name is Joe Sallustio, and I am honored to be able to host an amazing panel today to discuss a leap forward, the evolution of EdTech and learning ecosystems. I'd like to introduce my panel today, starting with the person who's joining me here in person. Her name is Neila Benzina. She's co-founder of Campusna. I hope I have that right. Yeah. And founder of Wimbeetechl. On the line here, on the line on video, we have Tsepo Ngwenyama. He's a portfolio manager at Injini. I hope I have that right, guys, and the pronunciation. So you can correct me when I'm wrong, which I surely will be. Lu Gang. He's right. Good. Founder, CEO of TechNode Global, and co-founder of the Beyond Expo. And Robert Hawkins, the global lead technology and innovation in education for the World Bank Group. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to this panel. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
This is a fireside chat, which means the way that we're going to ask each of you one question and give you up to 5 minutes to answer it. And if we have time at the end in our 25 minutes, we'll ask a question to the entire group. And Neila, I'm going to start with you since you're here and you look very awake this morning and ready to discuss EdTech and education. I took a long flight from Los Angeles, so I'm not as awake as you are today. But let's talk first. How do we create networks and structures of broader expertise that alleviate the burden from teachers alone?
Thank you, Joe. Then I'll tackle this question from my own perspective and from my own experience as a tech entrepreneur specialized in data and digital transformation. And I also co-founded an EdTech for educational institutions and for corporations that need to upskill and reskill their workforce and to train their employees to the newest technologies in very adapted way to their industry and their activities. The newest technologies like artificial intelligence, like big data, machine learning, also DevOps or cloud. And I also co-founded a very innovative computer science and software engineering school based on peer learning education and centered around learn how to learn, you know. Then to start with, to answer to this question, I think that I would like to quote a partner of us, whose name is Julien Barbier, who is the founder of Alberton School, who says that education is today one of the most critical industries of our society, and it takes a village to make it right. And I like this quotation and this expression because saying that it takes a village means that we need to involve all the stakeholders and all, you know, the players and all the ones who have to be involved to make it in the right way. And today, with the new era, with the digital transformation, governments, foundations, associations, but also, you know, companies, investors, edtechs, and also existing educational institutions must collaborate to ensure that, you know, their citizens will have access to education that is relevant to the new world and to the new economy, and that their region will be well prepared to capture the opportunity given by this new era. And this needs a joint effort, you know, leadership effort of all the stakeholders beyond any other consideration like profit or market rankings or things like that. And they have to overcome their business differences and to overcome their also competition, and business differences, and to go beyond that, to create and to put in place the best conditions for human development. At the end of the day, this is what we need: better conditions for human development. And teachers are at the heart of this process, and we need to make them contribute to building the future of their industry. And we need to help them to also to implement a sustainable system. And we must give them a sense of ownership if we want things to move forward in the right way. And don't forget that teachers have today a very touchy challenge, which is, as you can imagine, has increased after the pandemic crisis, and because of the acceleration that is needed in the learning process, because of also the emergence of new challenge in the teaching, on the way we teach the learners, but also in the emergence of new technologies, and the pace in which those educators had to adopt digital-driven, let's say, methodologies has been absolutely unprecedented. I'm sorry for my pronunciation.
Unprecedented. I understand.
Unprecedented. It's not easy. It's not always easy for me in English, but and. This was a real challenge for them, and this is likely to continue, with newer technologies coming in. So teachers have to embrace the digital transformation very quickly and very rapidly, and they shouldn't waste time on that. On the same time, if we look at the big picture more globally, we notice that even the organizations and the institutions in which they are working or in which they are evolving are lacking, for agility. There is a big lack of agility and of responsiveness in these institutions. And therefore, there is a big need also to break the barriers, to break the silos that have been existing for decades within those institutions, between departments, between units, but between also the organization and its environment. And today, they need to change all that. They need to adopt, let's say, collaborative tools, communication tools. They need also to adopt technology and digital in the process, create more transversality, and so on and so forth. And once we say that, we can ask how they can do that very quickly and how they can adapt these new technologies and this digital transformation in the best way. And I think the first answer that come up to me is to rely on EdTech, players, because those players hold in their DNA, all the ingredients that allow digital transformation, that allow agility, flexibility, and all these needed things for the traditional institutions. And when we think about also those players, we can imagine that it will be a game changer for the existing, traditional institution. Then they shouldn't, miss the opportunity to use them, to rely on them, and to use their solutions, not only use the solution to ease the work of teacher, which is, by the way, very important and crucial, because it will make the teachers and the educators focus on the most important things of their jobs instead of wasting time, in non-valuable tasks, so they can focus on mentoring, coaching, observing the learners. And at the same time, it will impulse, a radical change. And this is the way how change management can occur within, existing educational institutions. I'm gonna finish my talk by saying that I think that today we have to see that there is a paradigm shift, and governments, countries have to be aware of this paradigm shift, and to see that it is very important to implement a workspace, a collaborative workspace that brings together all the players, all the stakeholders, policymakers, foundations, fundings, or EdTechs, everyone in the same place, in an ecosystem where they can move forward faster and in a better way. And it is very important also that they will be able to share data, to share information, to share best practices, and implementing also, developing, implementing, sustaining, and monitoring solutions aimed at learning, learning outcomes, at improving learning outcomes.
Very good. Thank you very much. There's a lot there. In particular, when we talk about ed tech changing the lives of teachers, there aren't as many people that want to be teachers anymore, given the last couple of years that have happened with COVID. And we have to recognize, we have to recognize our teachers at all levels as they intersect with our kids, and appreciate them and pay them more. And I want to move to you, Tsepo. We're talking about engaging all stakeholders. What ideas might you have on how business and industry can partner to engage all stakeholders toward innovation in EdTech?
Thank you so much. I think my response for that, I don't want to sort of oversimplify, because I think it's quite complicated and quite complex to work with sort of different stakeholders in education to try move the needle in terms of improving educational outcomes and creating equal access to quality education for everyone. I think particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, there are so many sort of challenges that are interconnected and that are very sort of layered. For instance, sort of in some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, you could consider sort of ICT readiness as one of the core challenges for implementation of EdTech, but also some of the core challenges that are standing in the way of scaling EdTech solutions and making sure that it's accessed by as many people as possible, especially those underserved. And I think one of the key things of accelerating uptake and growth of EdTech within sub-Saharan Africa, particularly, would be sort of having that sort of multi-stakeholder engagement and collaboration. And I think that's coming together with a core purpose and core mission, and having alignment in what that core purpose and core mission is. So for us at Injini, what we want to do is we want to work with various stakeholders across the education ecosystem in sub-Saharan Africa. So from educators to EdTech innovators to government institutions. And what we want to do is move the needle in terms of improving access and quality of education across sub-Saharan Africa. So everyone that we're engaging with and that we're working with, we want to ensure that they are aligned to that mission and that they are aligned to that purpose, and that everyone is clear on how we go about in doing that. And that is leaning on the different strengths and the sort of different strengths and weaknesses that everyone within that ecosystem has, and making sure that the effort is collaborative and that everyone is equally taking ownership of each element of progress within education, so that it's not particularly dependent on one individual or on one institution, but rather the entire ecosystem, that everyone is sort of equally responsible and equally mandated in making sure that we're moving the needle in education and improving educational outcomes. And I guess a good example of sort of how practically this works and how it happens, one of our initiatives within our ecosystem development initiatives within Injini is we've got the think tank who are developing market-based research that is designed to help founders practically apply their knowledge about specific markets within Africa on how to implement and scale the solution. And what we also do there is identify an organization and partners within those markets that startups can collaborate and work with. And we facilitate those conversations, those introductions to making sure that the founders have friends on the ground, whether it's teachers or SDGs, so members of the school governing bodies or members of sort of governments and members of the community, making sure that those people have relationships and are building relationships and ensuring the implementation of EdTech within those regions. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move to you, Dr. Liu. When we talk about the role of augmented reality, virtual reality, in creating multi-level educational ecosystems, what is the role of AR and VR? And are institutions ready for the technology, or are they not ready for it? I think we're having technical difficulties there with Lou. I'm going to move on to Robert as we figure that out. Robert, I'm going to come over to you and ask you what the future of online learning looks like for educational institutions across the world. Easy question.
That's a big one. So thanks. So at the World Bank, as a result of COVID, there's been a huge influx of demand for online learning, both to address the emergency phase of COVID, just providing education services. Now, as schools begin to reopen, to kind of look at recovery, and more countries are looking at these investments with regard to resilience. We've put together an education strategy that outlines 5 principles that help kind of guide these investments. The first one is ask why. Make sure that kind of the education outcomes and changes you want to see in the classroom lead the investment, lead the technology, and not the other way around. You focus it for all at scale, so that when you focus on the most vulnerable, it's most easy to scale when you're able to figure out those solutions. So yeah, I think the future will be kind of being able to find flexible modular solutions that can reach all at scale. The third principle is empowering teachers and looking at ways in which technology can make their job easier, but also can give them an expanded role and responsibility in the classroom to be able to identify kind of what are the educational challenges and engage with kind of the broader ecosystem to implement those challenges, test them, evaluate them, and determine themselves whether they work or not. The fourth principle that we work with is engage the ecosystem, and this is much easier said than done. I think Neila talked about some of the issues around change management, around culture, around finding a common language between the private sector and the public sector. And also, I think a shared set of incentives, which I think Tsepo was getting at, being able to kind of align incentives and ensure that all the players are clear on kind of the educational outcomes. The final piece is be data-driven, and this entails both how to effectively use data information to improve the system. It also gets to the point of change management, of how organizations can be more flexible, more iterative in the way that they use data, adjust their policies, adjust their programs based on the evidence that they receive. And it also points to, I think, an issue around systems themselves and an evolution towards a much more modular, flexible, interoperable system that will be necessary in order to allow a larger number of stakeholders solution providers, innovators to participate in the system. What we find are a few problems. One is that ministries have a large number of systems that are siloed, that don't talk to each other. And also because they procure monolithic systems, it's very difficult to take risks on kind of smaller solution providers. So again, looking at ways in which to kind of move from these monolithic platforms to much more flexible, modular, interoperable platforms will be essential. I also think that the future of education will increasingly be decentralized, will be based on networks of shared interest, and will be based on very clear incentives in the system. So I think we're going to find ourselves between kind of what we have now in terms of open source, where there's very little monetary incentives, and the incentive is kind of reputation, and proprietary, which happens to be very closed, and we end up with issues around technology lock. I think what we're going to find is something in between. So let me stop there. I hope that answered your question.
I think so. Thank you very much. And Lou, I'm going to move over to you. Are you back, and do you have audio?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Very good. You've had a lot of time to think about my question, so I think it is going to be an amazing answer. No pressure. And let me ask you one more time. Just to ask you again, what's the role of augmented reality, virtual reality in creating multi-level educational ecosystems, and is education as a whole ready for that type of change?
Yeah, I think it's getting more and more important, because when we talk about online education, it's always like two sides, the teacher side and tutor sides. But without like AR or other like AI technologies, we still see the huge distance between teacher and the student. So I think that with the current technologies, we see more and more interactivities between both sides. I think that's the most important part happening to the like offline education systems, because we need the interactivities. But I think I have to say, we still talking about technology, we still want to see the further development of the AI or the AR or metaverse, whatever it is, because we still, I think technology is not there yet. Even we are inside the metaverse or people using AI, we still feel it's not that real. So I hope with the technology, the hardware, the infrastructure, and also software, and being more ready, I think we can feel. I think it will be, the online education will be more valuable for the current. I think the perfect add-on to the current education system.
I think one thing is clear from everything that you guys have said, and that is, it really is the time of educational technology. The big question is how it will be adopted and what that level of adoption will be. And do we come out of a global pandemic in a better way than we were before when it comes to education and educational systems? So I want to just very quickly go in a round robin here. I'll go back to you first, Lou. Do you think that educational institutions should be doubling down on educational technology now, or do they need to wait just a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think we need to wait a bit longer. My personal opinion, because I think it's the first thing, the technology is not that ready yet. The secondly is, we need to find a balance, because even we really looking forward to technologies, but still, I don't think the online education or EdTech, whatsoever, can 100% replace the traditional means like offline education systems. We need a balance. Just give a quick example. We see lots of online education cases in China, but my kids using the online education, on apps, on TV, smart TV, my parents always complain about teachers. Why? Because they think, in the real life, teachers should be really strict, to the student. But on the online education, like all the teachers, they are super nice. Why? Because they don't want like the parents drop off from the course. So that's why they play as a nice role. But it doesn't really happen in the real life, because you are saying it's not just about technologies. It's also about like emotional link between teacher and student,
Let me move to you, Tsepo.
which is cannot be replaced.
Yep, let me move to you, Tsepo. 15, 20 seconds. Should we be doubling down on educational technology?
I think I want to emphasize before I say yes or no to that question. I think I need to emphasize that it's important that education technology is designed for access, not just for the sort of pleasure or novelty of having innovative technology in classrooms. But I think what we should keep in mind is ensuring that it's improving access and quality of education as a core part of the design and how it's designed and why it's designed. So if it's not solving those challenges, it makes no difference whether we're doubling up or doubling down, or we're taking longer or making it quicker. I think it's important to put emphasis more on, is the technology designed to improve quality and access of education? Is the technology designed to help teachers perform better in classrooms and to help students perform better as well? I think that should be the focus.
Thank you.
Just leave it there.
Robert, same question. 15, 20 seconds.
No, I think that the key issue is to ask why. What is the change that you want to see in the classroom, and how can technology improve the status quo? I think in many cases it can also be used as a bit of a Trojan horse to put in place reforms that otherwise might not be possible. But I agree with Lou that it's about the human connections, which is the title of our strategy, and how it can facilitate the social, how it can inspire, how can it can create trust, how can it create networks, and how it can help individuals create what they otherwise couldn't create together.
Thank you.
So let me stop there.
Final thought to you, Neila.
Yeah.
15 seconds.
Then do we have the choice to adopt or not technology, by the way? I think we don't have the choice, and for teachers and educators, it's a way to be augmented teachers and to focus on the most important parts of their job, instead of wasting time on non-interesting tasks. I would just like to give an experience that we did with a higher school, where there was an elective course, and when we equipped this course with our online, putting in place a hybrid system, then the students were much more engaged, while before they weren't going to this course and they weren't attending this course. Then I think that a hybrid system with technology and in-class, in-person classes and courses are very important.
Very good. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Neila, Tsepo, Lou, Robert, this has been A Leap Forward, the evolution of EdTech and learning ecosystems.
Thanks.